Hello. Right. That started off kind of hot. The right. So you've probably seen the title, at least as I plan on titling this. This one is going to be about tarot because I kind of talked about that in the first one, and I don't think I've done anything since. So, as you might guess, then from the title, today's I don't know talk discussion episode will be about the devil. And I can't seem to find my Rider Waite deck at the moment. So instead, I have this one that I will continue to put up there, I guess, which is not. There we go. Focus. There we go. This is from Stolen Child Tarot. You can kind of see, you get the snake, you get the, mice or the people wearing mouse suits, mesmerized by his eyes as I see it. I really wanted the Rider Waite one because normally, in case you're not familiar, it would be two people with chains hung around their neck and the devil back behind holding the chains. Now, probably reference this again in a bit, but I don't know. This one's kind of been alive for me recently. Oh, yeah, speaking of, I don't know. Right, I'm Christopher, and if you've come here seeking answers, right, I don't have any. Um, as it appears, it's like all the answers are in here. So, right, yeah. Uh, make room in the, right. Uh, I don't know. So, that's where everything will sort of come from, I guess. Um, right. Awkward. But moving on. Um, so, yeah, clearly he wrote a script for this, right? Um, the uh, the point of this point of it, the way it's appearing for me lately is growing up. Bullying was a difficult part of my growing up. Oh God, words. Okay, which seems completely out of character as I'm almost laughing about this, which is like it was really awful actually. Hurt a lot, but I'm just in a different place these days. And but back then, in all seriousness, it things got really dark, kind of thing, and that affected like the next 40 years of my life, kind of thing. In terms of all the phrases of, I mean, once growing up, kind of thing, I went and asked somebody for change for $1. Yeah, we had cash back then, for those that don't know. And I remember she kind of replied, "Oh no, I don't have it," and I apologized to her, which is kind of one of those like, ooh, yeah. So like serious esteem issues and just all the negative self-talk. I mean, yeah. There's a part of, if you know, you know. I mean, it's whether I go through them or not is all the negative self-talk. So that became something where I sort of that's ultimately where for me, and I think I don't know, for me as I experienced it, that was a uh, downward slide that didn't stop for a long time into isolation and that kind of thing. And that's really hard. So for people that have experienced that, yeah, uh, sorry. Um, that's, well, anyway, um, you know, um, point being that that builds a lot of defenses. And it doesn't have to be isolation for you to build defenses. You could build defenses and go into survival mode for a whole lot of reasons, a whole lot of good, perfectly reasonable, or it doesn't even have to be reasonable, but it's, you protect yourself, you know, emotionally. You know, I mean, there's the physical aspect of in the moment, but it's all of the stuff that follows for a long time, that becomes defense mechanism or coping mechanisms or all those kinds of things. I don't know. And so what I noticed only since I started practicing Zen actually kind of thing, and actually allowing myself to go into the dark places, because I had kind of reached a point where coping mechanisms worked in the sense that not that things were good, but they were good enough. And, you know, it wasn't super positive life. It was pretty gray, actually. Beige, gray, trying to fade out more or less, and yeah, purgatory comes to mind. I actually never thought of that as a bad place. Huh. Yeah, because kind of growing up, that's what they would, teach you kind of thing. Oh, yeah, you don't want to go to purgatory. That's a bad place. It's like, but if there's no pain, that's not a bad place. I actually figured, yeah, purgatory, heaven, about the same thing, right? That's kind of sad in hindsight. But after feeling into joy and the rest of that, and then kind of feeling the absence of that, it's like, oh, that's why, yeah, emptiness and those sorts of feelings were so difficult. And I kind of share all this because it's important from my interpretation of the devil card. I don't know. I'd like to read more about, I should read more about mythology and all those stories and stuff. I used to enjoy that a lot. Segue. Unnecessary segue. But the point of all that is, until I started practicing and started going into the dark places and the rest of that, I was in the Rider Waite, bound by those stories and things that I told myself, not worthy of, or not worth it, or not. I mean, I didn't even know I wasn't my own main characters. I think I said in one, I was the butler, So it was this whole, just a lot of super negative self-talk. And a part of that, too, of also protecting, and really very much an arrogant part, too, of like, I know who I know you're not, and this complete lack of trust. A lack of trust, well, a whole lot of lack, actually. Lack of anything emotionally fulfilling in my life, and a lack of trust in anything else able to arrive. Which, oh my God, speaking of arriving, I kind of noticed, right, things next to the, some notifications. So I think there are some comments. So like, this is like, yeah, well, that reminded me of that stress. Because what was great yesterday kind of thing, it was like, oh yeah, hey, 10 views, 1 subscriber. Great. No comments. Perfect. I think I can handle that. Good. Now there might be comments like, oh shit, I got to reply to people. So like, oh yeah, not anxious. Well, it's good. No, it's not. There is no reservation. It's good. And there's that part that wants to say, but right. In case you are real people that commented and not bots and want answers rapidly, yeah, I don't do this for a living, and that's kind of, and yeah, I work full time doing other stuff, which immediately to me sounds like an excuse, where it's like, I just couldn't get to the 5 comments or whatever the hell, or however the hell many there are, which is like, yeah, that really is an excuse. The reality is I'm struggling to learn all this. I'm struggling to evolve myself in the process of doing this, to be blunt. So I jump around a lot, don't I? Oh well. Um, so the point of this whole thing is this cascading series of bullying into negative self-talk, into protection, into lack of trust, lack a giant, enormous sense of lack overall, and then in practice, kind of thing, diving into all, allowing that really to come out. And the first thing I realized, and around that same time, I did start, you know, uh, doing tarot, which I always kind of was interested in, but never. There's a whole lot of things I didn't actually do, even though I was interested in. Again, I think due to negative self-talk. But the first thing I noticed in that card is what most people talk about, which is, oh yeah, they're not actually bound up. The chain just hangs around their neck. They can take it off at any time and walk off and go do whatever. And that's normally where I hear that description of that card end, in the overall theme of it. And I don't deny it. Yeah, that's true. But what I don't really hear people talk about is what's left. Because what's left, if in fact that's all that happens, is the devil holding the chain in the Rider Waite. And what occurred to me just very recently is, well, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Maybe not so recently. Well, oh my God. The thing about chains is they have two ends, obviously. And whatever, with the existence of the chain between two entities, both ends have a role to play. One end, hopefully that muted. Right. Damn it. Because this isn't quite coming out, I don't really know how I planned it to come out, but if I just simply take the chain off and I walk away, the devil's out there. And then there kind of becomes sort of this relationship of me and it, whatever you want to label at this point as the devil. And now there becomes this entity out there that is the source of my problems, because what would stop it from convincing me to chain myself up again? What is it, kind of thing? And not to mention that, who is the person that took the chain off? Which point is it? Is it me, kind of thing? Who is, as the saying goes, who is speaking when you're talking? Who is that? And so what I noticed in my practice is I keep coming back to is in going into that negativity, I found myself, I think I had a dream actually, about bullies surrounding me, kind of thing. And not really sure how it went, but the question I was asked was, well, what if you went into the body of the bully? What's that like? And I got really upset, kind of thing. And it's like, no, seriously, a lot of rage. And so I sat with that. And in the process of doing that, what I noticed is I wasn't actually being bullied, and hadn't been for decades, I suppose. I mean, yeah, there's some assholes here or there, but I mean, really at the end of the day, it's been a long time since I've had any of that. And yet, this self-talk is very alive and well. It's been here. It's, it's alive and well. And that's when it kind of hit me that it's like, oh my God, I'm the bully. Um, it stopped decades ago, and somewhere along the lines, I took up the reins and took over, and have been doing it to myself my whole life. Um, and as I kind of continued to sit with that, that became this captain of the sailing ship, large, old wooden sailing ship on really, really stormy seas, and he's doing everything he can to keep it together. And that's when I realized, you know, it was survival mode. It was a side of me that had, you know, that was necessary back then, um, to get through. But it just got out of control and never knew when to quit. And of that whatever that feedback loop was, I didn't realize it was happening. It was just, you can't trust, and you're not good enough to, and we need to protect, um, and it just became, just this giant bunker where you just never go outside. You don't live, no, don't go outside, protect. Okay. And meanwhile, it's off on on independent ops. Let you know when it's safe. And the thing is it wasn't for what I think it became, and I realize it's, well, I don't want to give it too much physicality, I guess. But it's the best metaphor. I don't know. Well, it's actually how the images appeared to me, but I mean, I wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say versus the literal. Um, and so it was kind of however it arose from in the time that I would say that started to happen at a rather young age. It was necessary. It was useful. It had a purpose. There was nothing wrong. There was nothing. I shouldn't have been anything else. That's kind of the kindness for oneself too. But I'm not just making that up either, though. It's like, no, it's for who I was at the time. That's was fine. But it didn't know when to quit. And what I'm really, I guess, trying to get at is, at the time, it was protecting me from something real that I was feeling. But as time went on, that reality no longer existed. But what it took upon itself, so to speak, is the need to protect me from all pain. And this isn't going to happen again. We will never get here again, because I'm not sure I could make it through this again. So the consequence of anything happening, the perception of such, was such that never going to get hurt again. And to take the word never seriously puts a great burden upon someone, or an idea, an entity, whatever you want to call it, that's going to accomplish that. And so that's where the destruction started and got wildly out of control with time. And so that part of the story is important, because that's where the devil comes from. Same place. And I don't mean in your physical life or where or things that actually happen to you. Those can be terrible. And it's nothing I just, I don't understand why that stuff is, it just feels deeply unfortunate that that's in the world. But the recovery from that, I guess, if you will, is where I feel like we are no longer just the victim, but also the perpetrator in our mind. And we don't let that go. And then we become, both, the snake and the mice. We are just as we keep reliving something that's not happening anymore. And in no way am I saying deny feelings, deny intuition. I'm not saying any of that. I was unaware for a really long time that I was the one hurting myself. And to me, that's the significance of the chain, is in the effort to protect myself, and this isn't, and it's just something where it evolves over time. I don't even know that it's, yes, the things that are truly external that are happening to you, and not denying any of that, but just kind of years go by, and suddenly what was, terrible then becomes, oh, I've got a, gorilla in a cage. That's the rage or whatever. Don't let it out. Don't let it out. And that becomes, don't go near the cage. And then that becomes, but it's this thing that, I wanted to get rid of more than anything. But what did I do? I locked it up inside, because there was a part where it's like, well, no, I'm terrified if it would get out, because what would happen? I don't know. And that's what terrified me, is not that this bad thing would happen, but like, no, I don't know. It would be wildly out of control. That's what I thought, at least. And I was wrong about that. In the process of wandering down into these things and the rest of it, and actually seeing it, and as I think I've kind of referred to in other videos, taking a family photo with the monsters, inside, with the devil inside. It's not when I took the chain off of me as the victim, but when simply dropped the chain. Then, not only could those that were, well, all the parties were released at that point. The devil too. And I don't even really know, if it continued to keep that form or whatever you want to call it, because I'm kind of making it a little too real, a little too concrete. That's not really what I wanted to do. That's not really how it felt. Because what I kind of noticed it was more of this thing willing to do anything to make sure I didn't hurt again. And that included hurting me to keep me out of any situation that would put me in a weak position, or and which takes a lot of laughter out of your life too. Um, and then I kind of have a tendency towards absurdity, the rest of that kind of stuff. But so that all eventually came back, but that it took a while. Or it became this kind of fake laughter, where it's sort of like, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me, and inside that's a much gnarlier scene. Right. So I think if you don't mind all the jumping around in the back and forth, and then going forward 5 minutes and the rest of it, I think what I'm trying to kind of relate and take what resonates, leave what doesn't, sort of thing, is in these narratives, in these things we know, or at least for me, there are times when I would talk to myself as the victim, in oh well, of course it didn't work out, or well, no one's going to show up anyway, or why me, or they did, or just go to work because you got nothing else. Lots of ways things can manifest like that. Yeah, that hurt. That hurt. Me as the person at the end of the chain could have taken it off at any time, but I was the one saying it. Nobody else did. I don't even know if I said it out loud. Maybe in an empty room kind of thing, And that's where, right, that same devil doesn't really go away. Sometimes it wants to come out and says, well, yes, just like now. It's like, hey, be nice. But when the chain kind of drops and everyone kind of wanders off, it sort of looks like what it is, and that might take a little bit of time to sort of recognize and get used to. I'm not kind of saying like suddenly a light switch, but in a way it was kind of like a light switch in that, yeah, I am doing all that, and yeah, and then certain phrases and certain, yeah, all that just kind of becomes, oh, I do this a lot, don't I? And kind of in noticing those, gradually those kind of fade and those kind of fade, and that's not the end of the journey, though, strangely enough, because that's where you probably noticed the last few of these have been about receiving, because there's a lot of facets to freedom and joy, and yeah, receiving, that's a really tough one. I think I'm going to save that for another day. No. You're more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and you are worthy of love. Good night.